Hi, this video is just a short video explanation about your second assessment task, which is an essay. Now, it's really important to understand that this has two parts. Basically, the theory part, so talking about your topic, and then looking at some practical implications for that. So I'll explain this more in this video. Now, your due date is the 21st of October by 5 minutes to midnight. So you have plenty of time to prepare for this, but it's really good to start brainstorming and thinking about how you are going to approach it. We'll talk more about this in our week 8 classes. You can think about maybe an outline that you can present to some of your peers. So this is kind of what the task requires you to do. First, you need to pick one of the broad topics. Now these topics are available on Moodle in the Assessment Task 2 resources and guides. This list, each one is very different, and I'll talk about how you kind of make sure and understand what each is asking you to do. Now, the assignment is asking you to critically discuss the topic in relation to the country and English language teaching context which you are familiar. Now, it's important to understand that the word discuss means that you need to really show broadly what does the literature say about it. So not just one argument, but looking at a variety of different ideas about the topic, different perspectives, so people who agree or disagree, but ultimately you will have an argument that you're trying to say, and I'll give you an example of this. But you're looking at it broadly, and so on. So this will kind of help you be able to identify, maybe there's an argument, and then maybe you have 2 or 3 main kind of ideas about that. And again, I'll explain this more. You need to analyze the topic in light of practical implications on your teaching. So how does the knowledge of this topic impact teaching and learning? And in this section, what you're really going to do is you're going to be looking at practical ways, like what kind of activities and strategies might you use to kind of address what you have learned about your topic in the theory part. You're going to also reflect on your written task in week 3. You might have done it in week 1, but it was that first task about learning aspirations. And but you can also include other discussions. So provide those examples in your reflection of saying, while I thought this in this discussion, now this is what I think. And again, I'll give you some practical examples of that. Now you need to incorporate at least 5 scholarly articles or chapters that are in addition to the Harmer book. But please know that to be able to provide a really strong essay, you really do need to have a good list of references. So do keep this in mind. If you're really aiming for a distinction or high distinction, you really need to be probably looking at least 10 articles. So I think we'll start with looking at your topic. So here are 2 of the topics. The spread of English as a global language and its implications for classroom teaching. So this is the theory part, discussing your topic. So first you need to find out what are the main words here. So in this first one, we know it's about the spread of English and about English as a global language. So here's some things that you could talk about in this very broad topic. You could talk about what is the history of the spread of English in your country. What do the experts say about it? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What have been the benefits of it? Why? Has it been because of economics? Has it been because of politics? Why has it spread so much in your particular country? What's been the impact? Has it been a positive impact, a negative impact? Because you'll have different people say, it's been very positive, and others say it's not very positive. Others will say that there's been a really strong impact, and others will say not so much. Given that there's been the spread of English, how is English used in your context? Is it valued? Does it have status? How has the spread of English impacted education more specifically? Has it changed the curriculum? Has it changed the way that English education is taught? And has these changes impacted the way that you teach? Do you feel that you have to now do, a particular communicative language teaching approach, which has been a very international approach, but does it really apply well in your particular context? So these are just some of the things. So you have to kind of narrow this down and decide how are you going to talk about this. So you need to think about an argument. So, and I'm not going to give you an argument, but we might talk about this in week 8. I'll give you a different example. Another one, if we look at, there's the development of speaking skills. I think there's one about listening and writing and so on. So we're looking at the keywords development and speaking. So general question, well, how does one develop speaking skills? Well, what are the characteristics of a competent English speaker? What does good speaking skills consist of? What does that mean? And what do different people say it is? Is it about just being able to communicate? Is it about being able to take turns? What is speaking skill? You know, we often talk about speaking skill in regards to communicative competence. What is communicative competence? And how is this realized? How do we understand this in your particular teaching context? So how is speaking developed, taught, or learned in your country? And what are the benefits and negatives of that? And what are the areas for improvement? And how is the way that maybe internationally they talk about developing speaking, and then how it's developed in your country impact your classroom now, and how might it change in the future? So these are just some kind of ideas to think about what you might discuss. Now these topics are broad because you have to kind of decide more specifically what you want to talk about. Now if you want to talk about the development of speaking, you have to just talk about, well, what aspects. So you're going to first talk about, well, what is, you can organize it based on, how it's looked at internationally, and then how it's looked at in your country, and then how development of speaking, is done in these different contexts, and kind of the contradictions that happen. So there's a lot of different ways, and I think that's going to be the hardest part, is thinking about how you narrow it down and come up with some really, general argument, and then what are the main things that you're going to talk about. So I'll give you an example of this. Let's say, now this is not a topic, but I want to think about positive learning environments. So here's some questions I might think about. So why is a positive learning environment important for learning? Okay, what do the experts say? So why is it important? I might start by talking about why it's important. Then I might talk about what are the characteristics of a positive learning environment. What do the experts say about that? So I might say, why is it important? And then what are the characteristics? What does the classroom have? Or what do people say a learning environment looks like, feels like, sounds like, so on. Particularly in Australia, so if I'm looking at my context, how are positive learning environments created? So what does the research say about this? What kind of research has been done in Australia about learning environments, and what do they say about the impact on learning? So what are the arguments I'm making? Maybe I do a whole bunch of reading and I realize actually there's a lot about a sense of belonging and about a safe, supportive place. So I'll say that my argument is positive learning environments encourage student learning by giving them a sense of belonging and providing a supportive, safe place to make mistakes and improve. And maybe I organize it in that way. So then I not only talk about what a positive learning environment is, but I look at the research in regards to how it creates belonging and how it creates an opportunity, particularly for language, to make mistakes and improve. Okay, so this might just be one way that I organize my essay. So hopefully this will, again, positive learning environments is not a topic for this unit, but you can see how I might brainstorm some ways that I might talk about positive learning environments. When I'm doing the reflection part, I might be, and this is also in the theory part, or you can put it really wherever you want, but what have I learned from the reading or exploring about learning environments that I didn't know before? And you link back to your week 1 to 3 reflection. So I think, you could ask these kinds of questions. What was this something that I had said I needed to develop? So one of the questions in that little survey was, what did you want to develop in this unit? So was this something I said? Why or why not? Maybe you didn't. Why didn't you? Maybe you didn't think that learning environments were important, so you didn't even mention it. And why was that? Maybe it's because it's not a big thing that's talked about. So this is how you might discuss it. How does this new learning about learning environments, positive learning environments, help you to achieve what you wanted out of this course? Maybe you had said in that survey that you wanted to find out more information about assessment. Okay, well, does that help what we know about learning environments? So I had said something about how learning environments allow students to kind of make mistakes, a positive learning environment make mistakes, and then maybe students will be more willing to self-reflect and self-assess. Okay, so that's a connection. How does this new learning that you now know about learning environments, for example, change your perception of your role as a teacher? So in the survey, you talked about your role as a teacher. Has that changed now that you know more about positive learning environments? So this is how you can connect back to that reflection. So really focus on those 3 questions in that reflection about the skills that you want to develop, what you wanted to get out of the course, and your role as a teacher. Can you link back to now what you know about your topic, and has it changed? What are the connections that are being made between what you said and now what you know? Now, how can I create a positive learning environment to improve the learning experiences of my EL learners? So this is the practical implications. So maybe in the literature I found out that it's really important to get to know your students and make them feel that they belong. So, one of the activities I might do is I might do some team building activities where we all get to know some information about our backgrounds. Okay, so I talk about the activity, how I'd set it up, what is the age of the students, why am I doing it, and why does it link back to the theory? Well, the theory says that in order for a positive learning environment to exist, students need to feel like they belong and that they're known by their teacher. So you might talk about how that helps that. So you might focus on 3 activities. This is half your assignment. So you might be able to do 2 activities, but 2 or 3 activities, but more about really linking back, how does it actually connect to the theory, and how does this strategy or activity address what you now know about your topic? One of the things that you're supposed to talk about is how does it contribute to the communicative aims of of learning in L2. So I might ask myself the question, how can I encourage positive interactions in the classroom? So if the focus is on encouraging communication, then how can creating a positive learning environment also provide positive interaction? So maybe because I'm trying to create a sense of belonging, I allow for lots of positive and friendly and easygoing interactions where people can learn about each other and in a very respectful way. Okay, so this is what the rubric says. So the theoretical aspect looks at, you need to show how the topic that you've chosen is relevant to the context and your target learner group. So again, as I was talking about learning environments, I need to make sure that why I'm talking about this is relevant to my teaching context in Australia. Now, you also need to refer back to that first written task and discussion posts. So it shows development of your thinking and reflection. So you're linking back. So you're saying, while I originally wanted to do this unit because of this, I found out that learning environments was never something I thought I wanted to learn about, but I see how important it is for my development as a teacher, or something like that. You present a clear line of argument. Well, if my topic is the development of speaking, what is my argument? Am I saying that the development of speaking is important? Is it important for students in my classroom, and why? Maybe you're focusing on communicative language teaching. Is it a positive thing, and why? And what do the experts say about it? You cover a range of relevant points. So again, you have your argument, and then you have 2 or 3 points. As I mentioned, I'd say, learning environments, I talk about why it's important. And then I talk about maybe more specifically the use of belonging and making mistakes. And I look at the research in Australia to look at why creating a sense of belonging is important for student learning, and then I also look at this idea of being able to make mistakes and learn from them. It says in the rubric that this is half of your assignment, and you need to refer back to at least 5, so more, I would suggest. The practical aspect is, again, half of the assignment, and it's really making links between the theory and practice. So if I said that belonging was really important, then how will my activities or strategies make students feel like they belong? And I need to make sure that I have talked about the age, because what I might do for someone who's 7 years old is very different than what I might do for a 22-year-old. So, really making sure that it's relevant, and you discuss that. So you're providing these activities relevant to the topic, and you consider communicative aims. So what are the communicative aims in L2 teaching? So again, if I was talking about positive learning environments, I might say that I want to make sure that students feel comfortable talking fluently and spontaneously with their peers because they feel that they can freely make mistakes and not worry so much about accuracy. And finally, we'll have to look about paragraphing. Make sure your paragraphing is clear. There's no real errors in regards to, spelling. I think just a note that I've found with assignment 1, because some students use a program where it's in, for example, Chinese, it doesn't pick up language errors. Make sure that you edit your work by looking at, using Word, for example, to check through English mistakes, because I think sometimes there's a lot of errors that are not caught. If you've used any classroom materials, make sure that or textbooks as an activity, make sure that you discuss that if it's published, but I would also include anything that you created for the strategy or activity. Make sure that you reference appropriately, and that if you have quotation marks, that you have a page number for that. And again, make sure that you look at the AP aid guide to make sure your references, both in-text and end of references, are consistent. And that is all. So hopefully this will provide you a bit more information, get you thinking about how you want to approach assessment task 2. Now, do come with your ideas for week 8, because we can kind of unpack these and you can share with your peers to make sure that your argument seems clear and what you're trying to focus on. But my suggestion would be to start reading on your topic, because I think once you start reading about what's being said about your topic, you'll be able to really identify what you want to talk about and then what are your main points. All right, have a lovely week.